Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, The Learning Path. This is Dr. B. Meena, Head Department of Commerce and Vice Principal Shift 1 from Petition College of Arts and Science. From this video, I'm going to explain how to prepare a cost sheet. Click the I button to watch my previous videos to understand the concepts of cost accounting before you are going to understand the preparation of cost sheet. Let me check how to prepare a cost sheet after understanding the meaning of what is cost sheet. Look at the slide. I mentioned the meaning of cost sheet here. Usually it will be prepared by production oriented industries. They want to know what is the total cost they incurred before fixing the selling price. Because once they know the total cost of converting the raw material into a finished product for selling purpose, then only they can add their margin of profit to fix the selling price. The industries can prepare a cost sheet by categorizing the expenses into the direct expenses and the overheads. The overheads are further classified into it can be factory related or admin related or selling and distribution related. Say for example, I already mentioned you the overheads means indirect expenses. So expenses indirectly involved in the factory side, office side, as well as the selling and distribution department side. We need to identify and then classify those expenses under each category to know what is the total cost incurred for converting a raw material into a finished product. So industry can prepare a cost sheet for weekly basis or monthly basis or quarterly basis or half-yearly basis as per the feasibility and comfortability of the industry. So what is cost sheet? Look at the slide. Cost sheet is a document which provides estimated detailed cost in respect of a cost center or a cost unit. It analyzes and classifies in a tabular form that the expenses on different items for a particular period. It may be prepared on the basis of actual data. Look at that wordings I given in the brackets, historical cost sheet, or on the basis of estimate data. Companies, either they can prepare, the meaning for this third bullet point, a company can prepare a cost sheet either for the historical items. That means the expenses met by the company for production of the commodities. So they can prepare a cost sheet for the expenses they faced. Or else they may put an estimation what could be the total cost in future. So the cost sheets can be prepared by the company either based on the actual data, what happened, or else they can prepare the cost sheet based on the estimation, like tender or quotation. Okay, then what is cost sheet? So ascertainment of future costs and making comparison with the past records helps the management in fixing up the selling price of the products. Why we need to prepare a cost sheet means, see, we are running a product factory. So we want to know what could be the cost and we need to analyze the actual. Okay, say for example, I estimated the total cost of the production may be 10,000, say for example, but the total cost incurred actually is 12,000. So the excess amount I incurred is 2,000. Then I should analyze myself why there is a variation, why there is a deviation between the estimation as well as the actual. That helps the management in fixing up the selling price of the product. So what is cost sheet? You come to know in this slide. Next, I want to highlight when I'm going to prepare a cost sheet, before that, I must have an understanding what are the components of cost. Look at the slide. The components of total cost can be divided into four. The prime cost, that is otherwise called it as direct cost. And the next one is works or factory cost. And third one is cost of production. And fourth one is cost of sale or total cost. That prime cost, what is prime cost means? Already I told in the previous videos, all the direct expenses or collectively call it as prime cost. Okay. Then what is the next component of cost means? It's a manufacturing cost, that is factory cost or work cost. So how I can calculate this work cost or factory cost means, after getting the prime cost, I should consider all the indirect expenses or else all the overheads of factory related. Then I will get the works cost. Again, I'm repeating how to get the work cost means, I should add the prime cost. After getting the prime cost, how I can get the prime cost? I should add all the direct expenses. Then I will get the prime cost. After getting the prime cost, I should look into the problem. What are the factory related indirect expenses? Then I will get the answer. That answer name is called it as work cost. Once I finish the work cost, then I will move on to the next step. Look at the admin department. What are the office or administrative department indirect expenses? That is called as office overheads or establishment overheads or administrative overheads. So once I calculate the factory cost, I should add all the office overheads. Then I will get the answer. That is a third component of cost is called as, what is that? Cost of production. Once I calculated the cost of production, I should consider at last what are the overheads, that is indirect expenses incurred in the selling and distribution department. So if I add this selling and distribution department overheads along with the cost of production, then I will get the total cost, or otherwise call it as cost of sales. So when I was discussing about the factory overheads, office overheads, selling and distribution overheads means, you could have understand practically what are the expenses may incurred in the factory side, office side, as well as selling and distribution side. Say for example, we'll take one example. Salary of works manager, salary of works manager or factory manager. If it is given, the problem is it will come under factory overheads. Or else salary of manager, salary of a office manager is given means, you should bring this expenses under office overheads. In case the problem as salary of sales manager means, you can bring the salary of the sales manager under selling and distribution overheads. The thing is, you must able to identify the indirect expenses, which is otherwise called it as overheads, where it will come either factory side or office side or selling and distribution side. Once you are able to identify in categorizing the expenses under office or the factory or the selling and distribution, you can able to prepare the cost sheet based on the format that I'm going to explain the next slide. So in this slide, I want to highlight, when you're preparing the cost sheet, what are the components of cost? The components of cost are prime cost, factory cost, and then cost of production. Finally, we'll get the total cost. The next is, before I'm going to explain the format, you please look into the slide. What are the examples I list out under the factory overheads? Look at the examples I gave in the slides. You will get an idea what are the overheads will come under factory category. Look at the examples: cost of cotton waste, machine oil, grease, lubricating oil, store consumed for repair and maintenance work, loss of store items, non-productive wages, non-manufacturing wages, salary of foreman, salary of storekeeper, inspector, supervisor, all those persons where will be in the factory only. So all the salaries and wages given to the storekeeper, inspector, supervisor will come under factory only. Wages of factory watchman, salary of works manager, fees to technical staff, director, and cost of the idle time of factory labor. What is cost of idle time of factory labor means? Due to the power shutdown for 1 hour, all the laborers inside the factory, they will be idle. Okay, they will not do any work because we need power to run the machines. That time the probably all the workers will be idle. Okay, so even for that time, the company has to pay the salary. That is not the mistake of the workers. Okay, so that's why we are paying the salary to the factory labor. That is cost of idle time of a factory labor. Workman compensation. What is workman compensation? Suddenly a labor met with an accident while he is engaging in himself in the production means then the company has to compensate it. So that will come under factory overheads as workman compensation. Then other factory expenses, depreciation on plant. So I list out you to get an idea about what are the overheads. Again, I'm repeating, what are the overheads under factory side? Overheads means indirect expenses. So I think you get an idea about what are the expenses will come under factory overheads. And next is, I want to highlight certain examples will come under office overheads. Depreciation, repairs. So these depreciation and repairs, if it is occurred on the office furniture. In case, say for, I want to highlight this first point, depreciation on plant and machinery, if it is given in the problem means, it will come under factory side. I repeat, depreciation on plant and machinery, if it is given in the problem means, it will come under factory, because where you will find the plant and machinery only inside the factory. So depreciation on plant and machinery will come factory. But in this first example, which I listed under office overheads, this is a depreciation on the office furniture, repairs on the office furniture. Okay, so whatever depreciation applicable on office related assets means, that will come under office overheads. Insurance of office furniture, building, salaries for the office staff, salary and fees of the director, GM salary, printing, stationery, postage and telegram, rent, rates, taxes, office lighting, heating, cleaning expenses, audit fees, legal expenses, general expenses, establishment expenses, bank charges, director traveling expenses, all other office related expenses will come under office overheads. So from looking at this slide, you will get an idea about what are the overheads probably will come under office overheads. And next, selling overheads. Selling overheads, you know the meaning, whatever indirect expenses incurred under the selling and distribution department. Selling overheads I list out here. All the expenses which is related to your sales, that will come under selling overheads. Advertisement, salary to sales staff, commission on sale, brokerage on sale, sales office expenses, salary and commission to sales manager, depreciation, maintenance or sales office, decoration expense or showroom. Some factory may have an outlet inside the factory, so they may income some expenses. So that expenses I mentioned here, decoration expense of showroom, cost of preparing tender, free sample cost, rent rates of showroom, stock shortage. So these are the best examples to have an understanding over what are the overheads will come under selling department. Next, it's related to selling and distribution. We can combine these overheads when we are preparing the cost sheet. What are the distribution overheads? Rent of warehouse. So rent of warehouse means sometimes we need a place to store our that is finished products. That is called as warehouse. Okay, so that warehouse, we don't have the facility means we need to get on a rental basis. So what was the rent I paid? That will come under distribution overheads. Garage outwards. Garage outwards means what is the carrying expenses that I'm going to incur to carry my finished products from my warehouse to the marketplace. That is garage outwards. And other transport expenses, depreciation and repair of delivery vans. Try to differentiate the wordings. Depreciation on plant and machinery will come under factory. Depreciation on repairs on office furniture will come under office, or else depreciation or repairs of delivery vans. Delivery vans are the transport vehicles that we are going to make use to transfer the finished commodities from our warehouse to the market. So these delivery vans will come under selling and distribution department only. And petrol expense of delivery vans, salary of warehouse staff, general packing expenses, wastage of goods in transit, other warehouse expenses. So by looking at this slides, you will understand what are the factory overheads, what are the office overheads, what are the selling overheads, and what are the distribution overheads. And next, I want to discuss with you what are the items to be excluded in cost sheet. So look at the examples: transfer to reserve funds, donation or subscription, dividend and income tax, underwriting commission, preliminary expenses, bonus, interest on debenture, bank deposit, gratuity or pension, transfer fees, loss by theft, due to the fire, abnormal idle time wages. So these are all the expenses or the incomes which we need to exclude when we are preparing the cost sheet. When we are preparing the cost sheet, I want to put you what are the points to be strike in your mind when you are preparing the cost sheet. While preparing the cost sheet, the amount of opening and closing stock of work in progress should be considered. I think all of them knew about what is work in progress. That is 50% or 70% of the work only completed. That is work in progress. You can see when you are crossing the bridges one was constructing by the private authorities, that is quotation given by the government to the private authorities, they usually have a board work in progress. That is the amount of opening and closing work of closing stock of work in progress should be considered. Whenever you are having a opening stock of raw materials, a work in progress, or the finished goods, that must be added. The closing must be deducted. Only you need to consider the opening when you are preparing the cost sheet. Closing must be deducted because the closing is not the part of that monthly or week or quarterly or half yearly for that cost. It's not the part of that cost. Okay. So it must be considered only in the, say for example, I am preparing a cost sheet for this week means I should not consider the closing stock of the raw material for this week. So that's why the closing stock, either materials or the work in progress or the finished goods must be deducted. Only we need to consider the opening to know what is the cost for this week, what is the cost for the month. Okay. So we should not consider the closing. That's why we are deducting, have a logic. And next one is same way, accounting of finished goods. When we have finished goods for opening as well as closing means how to deal with that. In your problem, you may have opening for raw materials and work in progress and finished goods. And as well as the closing materials and work in progress and finished goods given means how to deal with that. In case finished goods is given, opening stock of finished goods is there, and closing stock of finished. What do you mean by finished goods? The goods are ready for sale. Okay, so that goods may be the opening stock or maybe the closing stock. Okay, so how to deal with these items when you are preparing the cost sheet? Mean, look at the last line of the slide. You will get the cost of production. After getting the cost of production, add the opening stock of finished goods and deduct the closing stock of finished goods. Then you will get an answer. That answer is called as, what is that? Cost of production of goods sold. So the thing I want to highlight when you're preparing a cost sheet. Next, we'll move on to the format, how to prepare the cost sheet. Okay. So look at that cost sheet format. I have three columns. That first column is and the second column is amount, where we have adjustments, and then we'll do internal adjustments and workings and calculation. Then we'll show the exact answer in the outer column. Okay. Now when we are preparing the cost sheet, you must know what are the calculations to be made in the cost sheet. There are nearly 6 calculations I need to consider. The 6 calculations of the cost sheets are: first, I need to calculate the cost of raw material consumed. So the first part of the cost sheet, I need to calculate the cost of raw material consumed. Then second part of the cost sheet, I need to calculate the prime cost. The third part of the cost sheet is I need to calculate the work cost, but this work cost answer will split into gross work cost and net work cost. When you will have the split up means when you have the information about the work in progress. The next part of the cost sheet is cost of production. And fifth part of the cost sheet is cost of production of goods sold. The final part of the cost sheet is cost of sales, I or it will be called it as total cost. Once I knew the total cost, I will add my margin of profit. Then I'll find out what is my sales. Let me check one by one what is the first part of the cost sheet, how it will be calculated. The first part of the cost sheet, I can say you need to calculate the cost of raw materials consumed. How to calculate? Opening stock of raw materials you must take, plus I'm giving the possibilities of or everything. So look into the problem, whatever is given based on this format, you fit into that. Okay, so I have to calculate the cost of raw material consumed. That means when I'm preparing a cost sheet for this week means for this week, how much of materials I made use. For that, what expenses I incurred. That is my first motive. Okay. So that's why the name is called it as cost of raw materials consumed. What is only used for this week? How to calculate this amount? Look at that format. Opening stock of raw materials, I should consider first. Along with that, I should add purchase of raw materials plus expenses on purchase of raw materials. So what is this expense of purchase of materials? When I'm purchasing the raw materials, I could have incurred certain expenses like garage inwards. Please make a note, garage inwards, freight charges, and so in case the raw material is not available in our country, I need to import from foreign country means I need to pay the import duty, excise duty, okay, with customs duty, I need to pay. So those expenses or the examples I can explain that expenses on purchase of raw materials. When I purchase the raw materials, I need to bring the raw materials from suppliers area to my godown, that is factory godown. So I should incur some garage expenses, freight expenses when I'm transferring the goods, raw materials from supplied area to my factory godown. That is purchase, that is expenses on purchase of raw materials. I think you understand. After adding this, I'm giving all the possibilities. Sometimes the problem may not have purchase, may not have the expenses. So this is the exact format with all the possibilities. You can look into the problem, what are the information available, based on that format you will work out. So minus closing stock of raw materials to be deducted from this amount. Okay. And then sale of direct materials crop. What is sale of direct? Why I'm deducting in this cost sheet? First of all, you must know the difference between the scrap and wastage. What do you mean by scrap? What do you mean by wastage? So scrap means a wastage which has a recovery value, but wastage does not have a recovery value. Say, when I'm going to produce one commodity, I'll get some wastage. That wastage will be the basic raw material for producing another product. Say, for example, when I'm producing a sugar in the sugar cane industry, I'm getting bagasse and molasses. So, based on that, by making use of the bagasse, I will produce the cardboards. So, I have a wastage, but as a recovery value. So, by selling this wastage, I'm getting some income. But there is no place for income when I'm preparing the cost sheet. That's why I'm deducting the sale of direct materials scrap. Only the cost incurred only will be considered under the cost sheet. That's why the closing stock of raw materials and sale of direct materials scrap will be directed over here. Sometimes they in the problem you may have only sale of scrap. So when the sale of scrap is given means you have two options. You may consider the scrap as direct material scrap or indirect material scrap. In case if you assume the scrap as indirect material means where you will consider to direct means after adding the, look at the slide, the arrow mark, after adding the factory overheads, I will deduct the sale of indirect material scrap. In case if you assume it is a direct material scrap means you need to consider over here when you are calculating the cost of raw materials consumed. If specifically they given direct material scrap, indirect material scrap means, so we need to consider here. If they given only sale of scrap alone is given in the problem means it's your wish. You can either consider it's a direct material scrap or you may consider as a indirect material scrap. Are you clear? And then based on that assumption, you must give a note under the solution. So looking at the first part of the cost sheet once again, how to calculate the cost of raw materials consumed means opening stock of raw materials plus purchase of raw materials plus expense on purchase of raw materials, get the total, deduct the closing stock of raw materials, And then in case scrap value is given means, if you are assuming direct material means, and consider that amount and deduct this two amounts from that amount. Then I'll go to the second part of the cost sheet. What is the second part of the cost sheet? Means I need to calculate prime cost. For this, I need to look into the problem. What are the direct expenses? The direct expenses can be given in the form of direct labor, direct wages, direct expenses, productive wages. These are all the best examples I can give you. Okay. So once you identify the direct expenses, you can calculate the prime cost. After that, we need to calculate the work cost. How to calculate the work cost means, look into the problem. What are the factory related expenses given in the problem? So get all those expenses and consider over here and add the factory overheads along with the prime cost. Okay, you will get one answer. From that answer, in case if your problem as indirect material scrap is given means, you deduct that indirect material scrap over here. Okay, then the resulting answer I mentioned over here was gross work cost. Why instead of work cost I mentioned as gross means, because the problem has the information about the opening work in progress or the closing work in progress. Whenever your problem has this any one information, either opening or the closing or both the information, the work cost may be split into gross work cost or net work cost. So opening must be added, closing must be deducted, and finally you will get the answer net work cost. In case the problem will not have that is the problem may not have the opening work in progress as well as closing. The work in progress information is not given means, straight away whatever answer you're getting after adding the factory overheads, in case material scrap is there, minus it, and that answer name is work cost. So when you will have the terms of gross work cost and net work cost means, when you have the information about the work in progress, please make a note of this. Then I will move on to how to calculate the cost of production. Once I calculated the work cost, I should consider the office related expenses which is given in the problem, then add all those office related expenses, then I'll get the cost of production. Once I calculate the cost of production, I should look into the problem. Is there any opening stock of finished goods or closing stock of finished goods? Opening means we must add it. Closing means we must deduct it. Here the finished goods. Try to have an understanding. The first part only the raw materials, and the work cost will have the work in progress. Look at that. And then the third part, that is in the when after calculating cost of production, only we need to consider the opening stock of finished goods and minus closing stock of finished goods. Then the resulting answer, that is the fifth part of the cost sheet, is what is that? Cost of production of goods sold. If the problem doesn't have the information of the opening stock of finished goods, closing stock of finished goods means, you can get the answer cost of production. Straight away you can add the selling and distribution overheads, then to get the total cost. Total cost is otherwise called as cost of sales. Then look into the problem. After adding the selling and distribution department expenses, you will get the total cost. Look into the problem. Either the information will be given on profit, or the information will be given on the sales. If the sales information is given means, compare the sales with your total cost, find out the profit or loss. If the profit or loss information is given means, find out the sales. Okay, so try to understand. I am repeating once again. Look into the problem. Either the sales or the profit or loss information will be given in the problem. In case the problem has the information about the sales means, you calculate the total cost by preparing the cost sheet. So total cost has to be compared with the sales to know the profit. In case profit or loss is given, either profit or loss is given means, and how this answer and compute the sales. So this is the way how you can prepare the cost sheet. In this format, I gave all the possibilities how to incorporate the things to prepare the cost sheet. So look into the problem, whatever information is available, and fit in as per this format. Thank you for watching my video. Subscribe my channel and click the bell button. See you soon in the next video. Stay home, stay safe.